morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law on My FM 101.3, which happens to be the 2019. I think it's the 99th year. I think it's the 9th year in a row. The Massachusetts Broadcaster Association Radio Station of the Year.
Brought to
Golf
you.
clap, yeah.
Brought to you. Soccer clap.
Yeah.
Brought to you by the show of the year, right? No?
Yep.
Could be.
7 years running. Yeah.
Yes,
the
right.
number one rated show on WMRC.
On terrestrial radio here in the continental United States.
That's what I heard. I mean, some people may argue. Sally Zally may have something to say about that. But
Yep.
you know what? Whatever.
Hey, bring it. It ain't bragging if you can back it up.
I ain't bragging. I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying. Just saying what I know.
Yep.
So you're listening to Money in the Law. This as the show we're talking about is Money in the Law. That's the show you're listening to right now on My FM 101.3.
That we probably should have introduced sooner in the soliloquy
I like
there.
this.
But
I
that's
like
all right.
this.
It's good.
And we're also on the Holliston Cable Access television station with Christian Bidet manning the double camera. One per guy.
It's a two-camera shoot.
My name is John Drohan, and I am joined again by my esteemed colleague Jay Marston of the Marston Law Group. Jay, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, buddy. Happy New Year. What's going on? How was your holiday?
The holiday was so good. I went into
Are you sweating?
No.
No,
I'm just a little warm.
These aren't hard questions. These are not hard questions.
I ran up the stairs. I was late coming in today.
All right.
So we had a great holiday. We had such a good holiday that I went into a post-holiday depression.
Nice.
No, that's the opposite of nice. That's not okay. But I'm coming out of it. It was a couple days. That 72-hour bug I had of like, where did Christmas go and New Year's and all the fun, all the company. I mean, the company was nice to have them leave, but I liked having the time off.
My wife says to me the other day, how come you're so much quicker taking down the holiday decorations than you are putting them up? And I said, well, because that is my most wonderful time of the year. Most people sing it at the beginning of the season. I like to break that little ditty out at the end of the season.
I mean, it's still the same time of the year, right?
Yep. I mean, it's, when you start taking the tree apart, and it's the equivalent, it's like closing an umbrella and then just, like, when you have a pine needle in your hand and you run your hand on the pine needle and all the needles come off. Well, that's the entire tree process, right? You try to jam it through the window that it went in 2 weeks before.
And every ornament comes off.
Every ornament. And
luckily you have boxes right there.
That's right. Oh, the house smells like pine tree. It does, because 89% of it is on the floor right now, and I have to somehow, sponge it all up. That's right. Absolutely right.
So I appreciate the taking down of all the Christmas tree. I appreciate the taking down of everything, of all the decorations. But what I will say this. So my birthday is coming up, shortly. So our rule of thumb is not everything doesn't come down until after my birthday. And it's really just because I'm lazy and I don't want to do the work. But the Christmas tree's got to come down because the Boy Scouts take it away, right?
Yep.
That's right. With the Boy Scouts taking it away, you're
not if you live in the woods, they don't. But anyway,
Well, that's true. If you live where they were going to put the casino, that's right. It's now a Christmas tree graveyard.
That's right. That would have held up the development of the casino, and they had to go and move the. That's right.
Move Jay's 15 years of Christmas.
That's right. All the holidays, just overlooking a sea of broken dreams and spirits.
All right, so in the new year, what do you want to talk about? Because I have some interesting things to talk about.
Ooh, all right. I had one thing.
What do you got? You tell me.
One thing I was going to talk about because it's a new year.
I'm fascinated.
As the law side of the table, because it's a new year, we have new laws.
Yes, I love new laws.
I
love it when the laws change.
I mean, it's so exciting. When does it ever happen to the point that it's like, oh my gosh, when do we just stop talking about this? So for those of you who have not been glued to your television to see what happens, we have this year that has been given to us by the powers that be in Congress, what they call the Secure Act.
Secure. Ready for your security.
That's what I was hoping to at least talk about a couple of provisions. Like most of the laws when they change, there needs to be some, they got to kind of work out the details. They like to get the law passed, and then everybody goes, how's it going to work? And then the answer is, we don't know yet. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Well, it sounded
a lot of this stuff hasn't been worked out yet, and so a lot of it has to get kind of...
Sounded like a good idea at the time.
Yep. Conceptually, here's kind of what we're trying to do. how it works, the mechanics of it, all this stuff that we don't know.
I am familiar with the Secure Act laws, and
yes, you
I
are.
am. Yeah, I am, and some of them do apply very specifically to the financial world.
Correct.
There's some very interesting things. So I think this is an important day to kind of bring that out to the public. So because it may affect you right now. Like right now, you may think I have to do something that you may not necessarily have to do.
Yep. But you know, we talk about this all the time, right? When do you go to your advisor? When do you talk to your advisor? What questions should you be asking? When should I go see my team? This is one of those times. If the team doesn't reach out to you when you have a second, this is a good time to call the team and say, hey, I have some questions about the way this new law. And by the way, some of this stuff, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen in Congress and in Washington that you don't feel like have any real impact on you on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
This is not one of those things. This is one of those things that there will be an immediate impact. Your world will feel different after this.
It's a real thing. A lot of it is going to hit very close to home, and many of them, on the whole, I think that they all could work out, and they could have a good positive impact. Some people may have a different impact.
Yeah, everyone's impacted some degree.
For the most part,
some more positively, some more negatively.
It's going to be positive.
That's
So,
right. What did you want to talk about?
That.
Oh, come on, stop.
I want to talk about that.
like
I want to talk
lame.
about that, but then I wanted to talk about a case study that I had with one of my favorite clients that called me, and it was actually rather humorous.
Okay.
But it could very well dovetail into, because it has to do with investment timing and when do you get into the market? When is it time to invest? I had this epiphany. So we'll talk about we'll talk Secure Act first. So
we'll do a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk Secure Act, and then we'll talk case study. How about that?
Break.
Sound like a plan? Break.
Secure Act and then break. All right, we'll be right back on MyFM 101.3. Money in the Law. Jay Marsden, John Johan. Nine. Count them. 9-time
winner. Surround
like
yourself
not even a
with
close
winners.
Second. Not even a close second. Like running, like looking in the rearview mirror. Nobody's even back there. Just us.
Nobody to taunt.
MyFM.
No taunting.
Yeah, radio station here. We'll be right back.
All right, we're back. Money in the Law, MyFM 101.3 with the 9-time, repeated again, 9-time Massachusetts Broadcasters
Wait, you're supposed to say this
of the year.
Until further notice.
Tom gives us notes and says, do this. And our job is to follow
we're not going to say.
Follow what our fearless leader says. That's our job. That's our job. So here we are talking 9-time Broadcaster Association Radio Station of the Year, MyFM 101.3, and Money in the Law with John Johan from Main Effort Financial. I'm Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. Christian manning the con, making us look
MyFM show of the year.
Skinny and pretty. And
show of Saturday year.
We're good. So we're talking, before the break, we're talking the Secure Act. So, of course, like every act in Congress, there always has to be some fancy acronym. The actual name of the law, or the change in the law, is the Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act.
I love
Say
acronyms.
that
I love them.
10 times fast.
love acronyms.
Hey, what are you doing up in Washington? I'm working on the Secure Every Community Up for Retirement and Security Act.
/ Secure Act.
The Secure Act, you've heard of it? Maybe heard
Come
of the
on, put in
IRA,
parentheses.
some of that stuff. Yeah. So that's what it's all about. So changing some of the rules around retirement. Some of the things that we actually had talked about at the end of last year, because we always talk year-end planning, year-round, and we wanted to talk about what that looks like. So do tell, what's your favorite change in the law?
All right, I have a favorite change, and I have a most significant impactful change.
Okay.
My favorite change is the and I know it's probably yours too, which is the extension of the extension of the required minimum distribution year.
Oh, be still my heart.
I mean,
Be
it's almost
still,
like we
Can
studied.
you hear it beating? Can you hear it
studied
beating?
for the quiz.
Right there on the TV. See, that's it right there. That's it. Yeah, I mean, they're letting you push back the MRD age. And they're letting you do it because there's finally been a recognition a couple of decades later that, guess what? People are living longer.
And more importantly, they're working longer.
That's right. And so they want to give you the ability to push off the required minimum distribution, or the minimum required distribution, depending on where you work. And that then gets pushed out to 72.5 as opposed to 70.5. So you bought
2 more years.
Bought yourself about 2 years of extra deferred growth, if you will, in the plan.
So what's the significance of that? So the significance is I'm asking myself a rhetorical
Please,
question.
please.
So the significance of that is huge for a lot of people, and we see it particularly in you as well in your practice. So oftentimes people when they retire, so let's say they retire in and around the 65, 66 year mark, right?
Yep.
So which is kind of like the goal, and in today's day and age, I call, if someone's retiring at 60, I'm like, you are a young retiree. You're a young man or a young woman, like you are just getting going. So oftentimes what happens if they've kind of won the game and won the retirement game, they have money that is in an IRA, a qualified account that they're not necessarily taking out because they don't need it at that point.
That's right.
So, and then when they hit age 70 and a half, or before the change in the law, they hit age 70 and a half, that year they have to start taking money out of their IRAs. And why is that? It's because, as we've reviewed on the show before, that this money has never been taxed.
Remember, Uncle Sam is tired of waiting.
That's right. So it's time. Uncle Sam is finally saying it's time for me to get my VIG on this.
Yep.
And so based on your life expectancy, you are now going to start. You're required to take out some money out of your IRA and more importantly, pay taxes on that money. And our joke is always now, when someone hits the required minimum distribution age and it's like, hey, now I got to start paying taxes on money that I don't need. And the joke is, look, if that's your biggest problem in life, then
Oh, I'll take it all day long.
Ain't too bad, right?
Yeah, all day long.
So
all
now,
day long.
even better, now you just tacked on 2 years. Now the problem is, or the caveat is, if you've already started taking your required minimum distributions, guess what? You don't get to
you don't get to pump
stop.
the brakes on it. Yeah, you
no,
sure?
You don't
You
get
sure?
to stop. You got to go. So
that could get tested in court. We'll see what happens. That could come up.
it could, right?
Yep.
For now, I wouldn't test it on my own IRA
Good point.
were I there,
That's
and
right.
I would
Good
not
point.
advise any of my clients or your clients on their own IRA. Hey, listen, I wouldn't challenge, I wouldn't push any buttons on this.
That's not the way to make a name for yourself. Guess what? We took the government to court.
Yeah.
It always sounds
We took
exciting,
the government
doesn't
to
it?
court, and
Yep.
we lost, and we still paid a 50%.
Yep.
Yeah, for
Hit,
us.
yeah, that's right. That's right. It was expensive. Yep.
So remember that, and the required minimum distribution, again, depending, it's relative, but usually early on, like in your first, second, third year, it's not a very big number. It's not a very big
No,
percentage.
it's usually about 4.5% of your first, whatever your account value is.
Correct.
You get $1 million in your IRA. Uncle Sam wants you to take out 45 grand.
So now, remember, the way the required minimum distribution is set up is that it's based on your life expectancy. So here's another thing. So now, instead of 70 and a half, it is now moved up to 72 and a half. So what that could change is the percentage that you have
That
to
first
take out
year
in
number.
your
That first year
year.
number is going to be a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
that
so-
first year number is going to be a little bit bigger.
So that's another thing you need to take into consideration with your planning. If you have a sizable IRA, it could change your tax situation. So all of that is important stuff. But I think in general, on the whole, it's a good rule because it's allowing people, again, kind of the general rule of thumb. Again, everybody has a different plan, but the general rule of thumb is if I can forego paying taxes as long as the law will allow me, I'll do that.
Yeah, I'm going to let my money work for me tax deferred. I'm going to let that pool grow as long as I can without pulling it out and paying taxes on it.
That's the benefit of the IRA. That's why
kind
you
of
do
the
the IRA in the first
It's
place.
the gold standard. And if you can do it, that's why you do it. Now, of course, the government giveth and the government taketh away, right? Because they just love to do that.
right.
So prior to the world of the Secure Act, if somebody passed away and left you their IRA,
Did you look in my notebook before I
did some
came?
homework, didn't I? Yeah,
Good
you're
Lord.
shocked when it sounds like I actually know what I'm talking about.
No, it's not
right?
that. It's that you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's even worse.
Yeah, I know. So again, government giveth, government taketh away. So before you get $1 million IRA, we'll make it up because it's a nice round number and everybody loves it, and you inherit an IRA and inherit $1 million from dad's IRA or mom's IRA. Your job was to say, okay, I get this $1 million IRA, I'm 50, I can continue to leave this thing alone for another these 20 years until the aforementioned age of 70, and then I got to start taking out minimum required distributions. But I have to take a little bit out every year based on my life expectancy at 50. But I could stretch this IRA out,
Stretch it.
and let it grow tax deferred for another 20 years, right? So my $1 million could, in theory, could triple, let's say, or could double, whatever it does, but it's a lot more because I don't have to drain this thing. I'm going to have to take a little bit out, but not a lot. It's my life expectancy. Well, guess what?
That's changing.
That is changing.
Yeah.
The government said, hey, whoa, time out. There's a lot of money swirling around in these beneficiary IRAs. And, Drohan's not too quick to take it out and give me mine. So how do we fix that? Well, here's how they fix it. Now, if you inherit that $1 million IRA, Uncle Sam says no more distributions based on your life expectancy. You get 10 years.
Yep.
Drain this puppy in 10 years and we're good.
So why is that significant? What's the significance of that? So it's one thing if I'm a 50-year-old beneficiary,
Yep.
right? So a 50-year beneficiary, I have 10 years to take it out. That's a pretty good number. Now again, remember, if my biggest problem in life is I've inherited a qualified account that's $1 million and I have to start taking money out of it every year.
Yeah.
So now that's going to affect my income, obviously, right? If I'm taking in and around $100,000 out of it every single year, that's it's going to raise my tax bracket most likely. And so, but if that's my biggest problem in life and that I'm paying more taxes because I'm making more money, oh well, right?
Well, yes, but if you were able to push those distributions off.
Oh, I agree with you. We're not arguing about this. I'm saying that as the recipient of that, it could change my financial situation, especially if I have kids and I'm applying for some sort of financial aid. That any inheritance at that point is going to affect it if you're applying for financial aid. And again, if that's your biggest problem in life, okay, people have worse problems than that.
That's right.
So I guess my point is the significance of a 50-year-old taking it out over 10 years. That's not an outlandish thing, right? I could see myself, if I inherited money, not that I'm trying to inherit money, but if I did, I could see it, especially if I have to use it to pay for college tuition or something, I may very well take it out over 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, the issue is if that same person who dies has $1 million IRA and they leave it to their grandchild who's 20, or their grandchild who's 10 years old, and which they very easily can do, and then what happens is now a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old or a 20-year-old, in the old law, God bless you, Christian.
Bless you.
even on radio and TV, people have to sneeze, right?
Yeah,
we still care. But if someone's taken over a 20-year-old's life expectancy, now you're talking drips and drabs, and now you're talking a whole different tax situation and a whole different ability for the government to get that money taxed.
That's right. So that person.
And that's a very big that's a big play, right? If someone has a sizable amount of assets,
it's a huge play because most people's retirement money is tied up in an IRA, right? IRA 401k. And it's in many cases beside their real estate or their primary residence, it's their biggest asset. And a lot of people were really able to sort of pass on some intergenerational wealth. I mean, you want to talk about getting somebody kickstarted, hand them $1 million IRA in the old law at 20 and say to them, by the way, just so you know, I know you don't realize this, you're 20 and you don't know anything, but you're all set. Like, you can check the retirement box. It's pretty much covered, right? And you can go and do whatever you're going to do. So now, that's not the case. Now you're going to have to, take this money out over 10 years, and you may not be ready for it, or you may not want it, and you may still be working. If you're older, you're in our sort of age bracket. You're in your 50s. You're gainfully employed, right? You're making some coin, and then you're going to add $100,000 a year on top of that. To your point, it's going to blow out your tax bracket scenario. Because now instead of drawing it out when you're not working, which is when you wanted to draw it, now it's really going to be a tax hit. You might have been in a much lower tax bracket before you may have begun the bulk of these distributions. Now you're going to give away way more of this money to the government because you're forced to take it out now than you would have down the road. I see this, unfortunately, as a huge negative. I don't see this. I mean, maybe it's a win for the government, and maybe the argument
is a win for the government.
And the argument is, we get to pay for some of these tax cuts. There's always this whole scam around, how do we pay for tax cuts and things like that. And this is potentially one of the ways they come up with it, which is this is how much money we're leaving on the table by not being able to tap into this money. This is how much revenue, if you will, the stretch IRA is holding back from the government. So this is how we fix it. And I don't think it's a win at all. I think it's a real negative, and I think it really hurts. It hurts the meat and potatoes middle class who have a sizable IRA, $750,000, $800,000, $1 million. That's not unusual.
I mean, it's a negative up until and it is. It's a negative. Now, up until, I guess, if you're in the position of an estate planning attorney. Because if I'm an estate planning attorney, I'm like, this is something that isn't, because, and all joking aside, this is something that if you find yourself in that situation, there are things that you can do. There are things that you can do in order to. There are smart moves that you can make. And Jay brought up a little bit ago where if, let's say, a very young person, let's say someone who's a minor inherits something like this and they have to start taking distributions, the idea of a 15-year-old kid who's getting literally getting $50,000 or $100,000 that they have to take out of this IRA, that's significant. So trust work is probably important to do at this point, because this is where if this money is going into a trust or is being controlled by a trust, then that could prevent a lot of those problems that we see when young people inherit IRAs or inherit money.
Yeah,
or
they're not ready for it. They're not ready to manage the money.
They're not ready for it, or they're in a situation where maybe their parent or guardian isn't in a position to manage it as well. So. It's another way in where having a trusted advisor, particularly in the estate planning, I'm just talking about estate planning right now, in that to make sure that if this is the situation, that you can manage it and put the beneficiaries or the recipients of this in a position to manage it, and you can do that by setting up a solid estate plan.
Well, a solid estate plan, and now you have to rethink the way you were handling your planning concepts or your ideas before. Right? So one of the things that's come up is how do we address some of these things? I know you guys see it in your practice all the time. There may be a real sort of revived interest in converting to Roth IRAs.
Yeah.
Right. And people may say, look, you know what? I'm working now, and if I'm gainfully employed and I want to pass this money on to my kids, I'll take the tax hit now. I'll convert the account to a Roth IRA. I'll write the check for the taxes so I don't burden you with it, and then I'll just Roth the whole thing. And again, from the government's perspective, that works, as in they get their money, which is really all they care about. And then at the same time, you get to say, great, and then I can pass this money on to my kids, and then it can stay and it can grow. But there's a price for that. If you want to Roth your IRA and you get $1 million IRA, the goal is to not use the money in the IRA to pay the taxes. The goal is that money comes from somewhere else, right?
Well, that brings up the whole other issue of how do you pay the tax? We talked about that in previous shows about how I pay the tax in a Roth conversion. So there's a lot of financial moves that you can make that could help to alleviate some of the pressure on it. Conversion of a Roth could be one, depending upon your situation. Again, depending if the stars line up. The other thing is, think about what happens if all of a sudden right now, let's say you're working, you have kids in college. Let's say you're spending a lot of money because right now you have a lot of bills. Let's say you have a couple kids in college, and you have college tuition that you're taking. So maybe at this point in time you're not in a position where you can max out your 401k or your retirement. Now by having an influx of cash, it may allow you to be able to do some things that you otherwise weren't able to do. Or if you get an influx of cash that says, if I get $50,000 or $100,000 a year that I have to pay my taxes on. Now I can earmark that for, when we do our investments and our saving, we save in buckets, right? So this money I can earmark this for college tuition, or I can earmark this money for retirement, or I can earmark this for, and how I save for retirement or where I save for retirement. Again, there's a number of different options and a number of different things that you can do. And, it's not like you take this money, it's not like you get it and you got to spend it.
Right. Well, just to clarify one thing, the elimination of the stretch provision does not apply to spouses.
Oh yeah,
so
right.
So make sure. So before you go, stop strangling your spouse.
The spousal IRA.
That's right. That is alive and well. So if you're a spouse who inherits an IRA,
that's a different animal.
Not an issue for you. This is really for kids, grandkids. There are some exceptions built into the law, but for the most part, it's really the elimination of it that makes the difference for trying to leave retirement money to your children.
A lot of times we see it with elderly people who leave it to adult children.
Yep.
Adult children, like in the first example of somebody like in their 50s or their 40s or 50s, their elderly parent passes away, and the IRA gets left to the kids. Now they have there are, now they have this influx of money. They have to take it over the course of, and you may say, well, if I inherit $250,000 IRA and I have a kid who I need to put through college, you may say, I'm going to take it all today.
You might, and you might do that, and that was the beauty of the old system, was you really controlled kind of how this happened. If you had a $250,000 IRA, you might take out, you might not take out the whole $250,000. You might say, look, I'll fund I'll borrow the money to pay for college, and then I can pull this money out and stretch the money out in my withdrawals, reduce my tax impact, and really manage that. That, to some degree, that gets taken away a little bit, because at the end of 10 years, that pool has to be emptied. Now, you may wait till the last year. You might say, look, you know what? I don't want $250,000 in revenue right now. I don't know what my life looks like in 10 years. Maybe I'll be in a different tax bracket. Maybe rates will be different. Maybe who knows? Maybe there'll be a change in regime in Washington and this goes away. Who knows? There's a million things that could happen. So there's going to be some real, there's a lot of sort of moving around of the deck chairs on this for the next couple of years. Interesting. We were talking about the government.
Not that it's on the Titanic.
Well, no, we're talking about how much money the government gets, so there's some details around some of those numbers.
Let's see them stats.
The bill is going to add $428 million to the federal budget over 10 years. Of the $16.2 billion in revenue provisions, $15.7 billion is accounted for by the elimination of the stretch IRA.
Well,
so we talked about how much money. Give you an idea where all that dough is coming from.
There is a pool of smart people whose glasses usually sit right about here most of the day, and they're in front of a computer screen or a slide rule. Some of the older guys,
old school,
right? And they're like, hey, boss, look at this. You see that number? This is what happens if we do this. And they're like, can we do that?
I just found $15 billion.
And then they look around the room and like, can we do that? Can we do? I don't know. Can we do that?
Call somebody.
Yeah. Let's make a call.
That's right. Let's make this happen.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back to talk more Secure Act on money. Money and the law. My FM 101.3, Jay Mars and John Duran, and on the Hollison Cable Access TV. We will be back in a momento.
Un momento. And we're back. Money and the Law, My FM 101.3, Jay Mars with the Mars and Law Group.
I have a good picture on my phone.
And John Drohan with the Main Effort Financial. Reaching out to you guys on the, how many times? 9-time winner of the year, Massachusetts Broadcast Association Radio Station of the Year. Hats off to all the folks here at My FM, all the great work that they do. Tom and his team, fantastic community champions.
Community champions.
Community champ.
Unlike
the other community champ that's not even going to get into the championship game this year.
Ooh,
that would be
ouch. Your New England Patriots.
Your New England Patriots. That's right. And your soon-to-be departed Tom Brady.
He's staying.
He's
staying. Are we talking football?
No.
Are we talking sports?
That was it. Little teaser. Teaser. We'll dedicate a whole show to it. That's it. Not today. Not today. Talking stretch IRAs. We're talking the Secure Act. Anybody wants to call in and tell us if you can rattle off the name of the Secure Act right now, we'll give you
a free T-shirt.
Free T-shirt or a Toyota. One of the two. Neither one of those are sponsors. That's right. How about what kind of car you drive, Christian? You're going to get Christian's car.
Yeah.
Give that away. Fantastic. It's all good. Right?
Christian.
H-Cat
We're driving we call it Big Red.
That's right. So one of the things also that I think is going to come out of this Secure Act, kind of talking about some of the provisions, with the elimination of the stretch IRA, we joke about it. We always preface these comments. We have nothing but love for our friends in the insurance industry. We love them, love them to death. But this may be an opportunity, and I'm sure that the bullpen at insurance agencies all around this great nation of ours, the bell is ringing.
Up, yeah.
The bell is ringing because.
Waking up. Here we go.
Christmas come early, fellas. 2020. Get out your leisure suit.
We go.
It's time to go on a sit, right?
Here we go.
So they're going to sit down with you and they're going to say, this new Secure Act, because your kid got to take all that money out over like 10 years or so, you might need some insurance, right? Always an opportunity. And so, but parents may decide, as a result of, what's the impact of my kid going to be from a tax perspective? You may decide, we're either going to pull money out now and use this money to buy some policies, or we're just going to build into our plan and say, look, and because you're going to get a haircut on the tax money over 10 years, we're going to supplement that with a life insurance policy.
What should we do?
Well,
there's the life insurance hammer or the annuity hammer.
That's right.
And then all I see is just a table full of nails.
That's exactly right. And this is how we're going to fix this thing.
Yeah.
So that's going to potentially be a planning opportunity. And again, you'll probably hear a lot, or you get a lot of phone calls from people saying, hey, there's this new act. They're going to run to those two things that we just talked about. They're going to jump on the, hey, by the way, 72 and a half of your MRDs now, right? Great. And oh, by the way, no more stretch IRA. Bummer. You'll be able to speak very intelligently to that discussion based on your listening to this show today. And then from there, it gets into John's question, which is, so what do I do, right? And this is some stuff that's going to kind of unpack itself as the year progresses, where you're going to see a lot of planning techniques or some planning suggestions around whether or not there's even a need to do something. It might not be broken. There might be nothing to fix, but there might be some suggestions. And be wary of that, by the way. Be very wary of the idea that because people think that the landscape has dramatically altered, it's altered. I don't know if it's dramatic. I mean, the stretch IRA provision is big, but be wary of a sort of a sales pitch, if you will, that is designed around solving what somebody may be pushing as a problem because of this change in the law. There may not be a problem, I guess is the point.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking, is that, this isn't it's a change, and for some people, and again, it's going to be kind of a case-by-case basis, but for some people, it's going to be a significant change, but for most people, it's not. So, like I said, if I inherit an IRA worth $500,000 or $1 million at age 50, yeah, and I have I have a planning issue. I mean, if I inherited an IRA and before the Secure Act, I would have a planning issue. I'm like, what am I going to do? What's the best way to do this? Because if I'm going to take the stretch provision, or if I'm going to take do a partial, take it out over 5 years. I mean, there's anytime you have an inheritance or have a change in your financial situation, it's time to plan. Jay's point is valid in that there are people, and we're not kind of pointing our fingers at anybody in particular, even in industry in particular, but there are people out there that are going to use any type of change in the law. So they're going to say, oh, do you know about this? Oh, well, let me tell you, these are they're going to start painting this doom and gloom picture to the point where they're going to push some pain buttons on you that may not necessarily be there. So,
and because it doesn't happen a lot, right? I mean, this industry changes at a glacial pace in some respects, right? In terms of rules and what you can do, and I mean, this whole stretch IRA thing's been around for a million years, and so yeah, this stuff doesn't happen at light speed. So when it does, yes, your radar can kind of go off, and your spidey sense is going to tingle a little bit because somebody's going to come in and tell you there's an urgency. You need to do something because of this, and the answer is, well, maybe you need to do something. To John's point, you may have a planning issue, you might not have a problem. It doesn't create a problem.
So one of the things that happens, and particularly in the annuity industry, and again, Jay and I are both very familiar with annuities, but in the annuity industry, you'll have these, every year, it's like they're cars, right? It's like there's new models that come out and they have these new bells and whistles on them. And of course, in the wake of this, there's going to be new annuity products that are going to come out that are going to have these new bells and whistles that are built around the Secure Act, particularly around things like the later required minimum distribution, because that was always an issue for these annuities that had these lifetime income riders on them. In that, so let's say you bought an annuity that gave you a guaranteed 5% for life beginning at age 65, but then when you hit age 70 and a half and you have to start taking your required minimum distribution, then let's say that your distribution was more than 5% of the annuity. It got up to be where your guarantee was more than 5%. Now these annuities where they would guarantee you, they say, it doesn't matter. I know we guaranteed you 5%, but because your RMD said you have to take 7%, we'll give you 7%, and it doesn't affect the rider in the guarantee in your contract. So now annuity companies they've bought 2 years, so they've been given 2 years to an extension to do that, which could play in favor for the customer in the sense that there's less requirement, or there's less probably financial guarantee requirement for the annuity company, again based on some math that I couldn't even dream to do in my head.
Right.
But now with the stretch IRAs, there could be like Jay said, some scare tactics out there, and I haven't heard any of these yet, but I'm sure that they'll be coming down the pike. And I'm actually I'm actually interested to hear some of these. It'll be fun to listen to.
Well, you bring up a great point. I mean, the financial services world is made up of products, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to think about this, but you're right? You're in the auto industry, you make cars. You're in the financial services industry, you make financial products,
You
right?
make places for people to put their money.
That's right. You might make a mutual fund, you might make a CD, you might make an annuity, you might make an insurance contract, you might make something, right? So you're exactly right. Somebody right now back in their secret lab is going through this with a fine-tooth comb, and they're looking for things. They're looking for out clauses. They're looking for exceptions. They're looking for a certain interpretation that might break a certain way that is going to allow them to then manufacture some product that you will find out. Guess what? The way this product is, put together, and the way they got a letter, a revenue ruling or a private letter ruling from the IRS that says that this product helps you, avoid the 10-year mandatory distributions, and you can do it for life. Or once you annuitize that contract, as long as it's annuitized for life, the 10-year doesn't apply to you. So these things are going to happen, and so this is going to start to unfold, and it won't take long. I mean, these guys know what they're doing, right? So they know how to read this stuff.
They know how to read those tea leaves.
Well, they do, and then they know how to develop products around it that benefit clients. We're not saying this is a negative. I'm saying that this is what happens. That's probably one of my wholesalers calling me right now.
That's right.
Probably wants to make an appointment. I heard you on the radio. That's right. So this is what's going on. So just again, just be cautious of it. We just don't. I don't want you to rush into something because you feel like somebody's saying to you, "There's some urgency here, and you need to do something." This paint is still wet, and let's kind of figure out what happens going forward. And when in doubt, check it out.
Yeah.
You like that?
Yeah, I heard a different variation of that, but yeah. So just to kind of stay on the topic of annuities, for one more thing. Remember, when with respect to annuities, they're a complicated product. So we just use these as an example. So again, just to hammer the dead horse of Jay's point of like it's important to understand these things and not jump into them, because oftentimes with annuities they come with a when you buy into it, then you're kind of locked into it for a while.
Yeah, you're in
because of a surrender period. So if you engage in one of these contracts, you have to make sure that it's the right fit for you and that you truly understand all of both the upside as well as the downside. Because in the grand scheme of things, the insurance companies, their businesses, they need to make money. So they won't build a product where there's a potential that they're going to lose money. So they never will. And
That's right.
and not that that's a bad thing, not that they're not at the detriment of an insurance company.
No, they're bringing a benefit. They're bringing a benefit.
But they won't do it. Just like GM isn't going to. They're not going to build a car that they think is going to crash. Like
Right.
it just doesn't make sense
Yeah,
from
they're
a business
that way.
standpoint.
Yeah.
So again, if you're gonna go down that road, and make sure that you truly understand the product and have somebody who, other than get a second opinion on it, and something other than the salesperson, because the salesperson, remember, their job is to sell their product.
That's their job. Sell, baby.
All right.
That's it. That's all I got.
That's all I got. That's secure. All right. So that's a secure act.
Oh,
right?
and
there's a couple other.
Well, and to be, this is going to be an ongoing discussion. I mean, as we talked about, as this thing unfolds and the wrapping comes off this thing, this is not the final word on the Secure Act.
Okay.
I can promise you that.
All right. So
I want to get to your case study.
All right. So to caveat in, I got a phone call. Right. I got a phone call yesterday. One of my dear friends, longtime client of mine, and he calls me and he says, "Hey, why?" He goes, "Did you know that Apple nearly doubled in price over the last 60 months?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he goes, "Why didn't you put me in Apple 60 months ago?"
Yeah, come on. Why didn't you?
Right.
Tell everybody.
And so it was late in the day, so I was I had worked all day.
Yeah,
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I'm not saying he wasn't, but I'm saying all I know is that I get this call, and so we get in a rather, we'll call it a spirited discussion.
Love
right?
it. Yep.
And the discussion was kind of based around what are you supposed to do as my advisor? Why are you not?
That's why I'm hiring you.
Right. And so we talked about it, and people they ask this question all the time, like, what do you do? What is your job? And so we clearly articulate our job is to get you from point A to point B. Our job is to make sure is to to understand your situation and then provide you advice on what we would do were we in these same situations to get you to to achieve your objectives and your goals. So I asked him. I said, look. I understand. Wouldn't it? I would have loved to have bought more Apple if I knew that this was going to happen. I would have loved to have bought more. Pick the stock that
all I would have bought.
Has jumped. Exactly right. I would have sold it. But no one knows this. And oh, by the way, 60 months ago, do you realize that Apple was at its all-time high, and it had recently just split? It was at its all. So we're using Apple as an example. I mean, we're not saying don't buy.
This could apply to any
exactly.
investment.
So this is the. So we'll call it StockX. So we at this point at that point in time, we know what we know. And he said, yeah, but why didn't you tell me to do it? And so it made me think. It made me think as an advice, because whenever people kind of come at you and you say, oh, am I, you always say, do a little self-reflection, say, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
So I think the important lesson that I learned from it is that you as a consumer, or you as a person, it's your job to always be kind of looking at your own situation. And it's your job to say, okay, here's where I'm at. And if I'm not getting any advice, if I really want advice, to go get it. Like go call somebody that you trust. If you have a lawyer, if you have a financial planner, if you have an estate, call those people if you haven't gotten back to them. And in defense, if they haven't called you and they're not keeping in contact with you, then that's their fault, right? So that's they hold some responsibility in that as well. But you as a don't sit there and be like, hey, why didn't you tell me to do this? Or why, so when my client and I, we calmed down a little bit and talked, and I said, look, I can remember you were in a different situation 60 months ago. And now as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you were in a much different place. Your life was in a different place. Your job situation, your home situation was in a much different place. And I knew you had money. I said, but at that point, you weren't ready to go to dump 30% of your portfolio or 30% of your cash into some particular stock or some particular group of 5 or 6 stocks. It's you weren't in that place. So I guess like I said, the lesson learned here is
the first lesson learned is, I know you have a better lesson than this one, but the first lesson learned is that's hindsight.
Well, of course, right?
So I mean, that is an industry-wide conversation that you're having all the time, which is, why didn't I do this, right? We get it on the law side. Clients come in all the time and they're like, hey, so my house that we did in the trust 5 years ago, that's all protected, right? No, it's not. Why not? Because you didn't want to do that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What do you mean? We talked about it. We laid it all out. And we said to you, this is what, if you want to try to protect an asset or this asset, this is how you do it. And this is what the look backs look like. And that's your 5-year thing. Oh, okay, I thought we did that. No, we didn't do that. And by the way, let me go back and look at my notes, and here's my notes. Talked about the protection piece of the plan and did not want to put it in protection. Did not want to give up control. There you go. That's a risk right now. To your point, I would love to be able to sit down every year and go back, and we probably do, I'll bet you we do 100 estate plans a year. So so to go back next year, so 2020, and revisit all the 100 that we did last year, and then also try to, obviously build a practice and service our clients this year. We don't necessarily operate that way. We say what you just said is, look, if you have questions and something changes, let us know. Yeah,
that's a great point for the estate planning, particularly. If the estate planning, if you have a significant life change, then you may have to you need to revisit that estate. How is this going to affect my estate plan?
That's right. That's right. And by the way, we tell people, call. Don't cost nothing, right? Pick up the phone. Hey, I just real quick, nothing's changed on my end. Do you think that I should change anything in my account or in my plan? Well, let's take a look. Well, you're in control of everything. This is the one thing that we did talk about. How does that rest with you this year? How does that sit with you this year? Do you still like that? I'm fine with the way everything is. Great, then no changes. You know what? No, we figured it out. We're never leaving the house. Remember a year ago we thought we were moving, and you go through that whole scene? We're not moving. This is our forever home. Great. Let's talk about what that means and what that looks like. Because again, everybody's going home and having conversations, right? You have a conversation with your spouse about what your future look like. Are we going to be here? What are we going to do? There's all kinds of stuff going on. And to your point, we try to catch it all, but we don't necessarily, we can't guarantee that we catch it all. It's a partnership, is my point. It's a partnership.
Yeah. So the one of the things that I thought about, and so like if I could go back and do it differently, I wouldn't. Particularly with this particular, because I had said to him, I said, look, here are some options. Here are some options that you can do right now. But again, the important thing is that everybody's, at that particular moment or that particular, time period in your life, you may not be ready to do things that 6 months later you're ready to do.
That's right.
You may not be, and your advisor, whomever you're speaking to, their job, particularly if they're a fiduciary in a fiduciary position, their job is to say, look, I wouldn't do this if I were you right now. I wouldn't do this. I mean, you can, and if someone's, people will be like, look, I want to pay off my house. I'm like, I wouldn't pay off my house right now. You have 2 kids you got to put through college,
right.
And they're like, I want to pay off my house. At the end of the day, it's your money. You can do what you want with it.
Yeah.
I mean, all I can do is tell you what I think.
Sign
you should
here that we had this discussion,
Yeah.
and that you chose to go against advice. That's fine.
Right.
No, that's real. We've done that.
You have to do it, right?
Yes, we have, absolutely, because that call's coming.
Yeah, because later on when they're like, well, the interest rate skyrocket, now I have to take a line of credit on my house because I need to pay for college. Like,
At 8% instead of 4%. Well, we talked about this, right? Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's again, we call those CYA letters.
Yeah.
We get a little CYA letter put together here. And by the way, one of the reasons that we do it, and I know that you guys think about this the same way, the reason we do it is we want you to understand the significance of the decision that you're making. Right? So when you come in with some outlandish cockamamie story about how you're going to double your money in 60 months and why we should back that plan, and then we don't back that plan and we make you sign something that says when this plan or if this plan blows up in your face, basically I don't want to hear about it.
Right.
Because my answer is going to be, I told you so.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to hold up that piece of paper that says, we talked about this.
Yeah. Now, could your advisor be wrong? Of course.
Absolutely, they could.
I mean, my roommate from college, when he bought his duplex in Brookline for $780,000 and had a $700,000 mortgage, and I said, what are you doing, you fool, you idiot? And then 2.5 years later, he sold it for $1.1 million and said, who's stupid? I'm like, well, I guess I am.
Me, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That's right. That's right. There's no guarantee, right? Nobody's cornered the market on good ideas and perfection.
No.
But there's some guideposts, right?
That's right.
And so 5 years ago, it's like right now. Let's look ahead the next 5 years. Somebody walks into your office and says, I want to put 100% of my portfolio in Tesla stock.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what the pros of that look
here's
like.
Here's what could happen, and here's
talk about what the cons of that look like.
Will you get to meet Elon Musk? Maybe you will. Who knows?
Maybe you will. That's right. Maybe you will. They sold 190,000 cars last year. GM sold 2.3 million.
Who knows?
Is it a bet? It's a bit of a bet.
Yeah.
You're taking a bit of a risk. Yeah. And here's what could happen.
Not that I'm not a fan of Teslas.
No.
I mean, we talked about the Tesla. It's a cool car.
They're
right?
unbelievable. They're unbelievable. But are you willing to bet 100% of your net worth on it? Now, you are correct. In 5 years, you could have $5 bajillion, right? Or you could lose most, if not all of it. And so there's somewhere.
It's the risk reward. It's like your risk tolerance. It's so all of those same rules still apply. And if I could go back, right? If you could go back in time and think of all the, if you think of all the company stuff, it's a no-brainer. Like all the things that I wish I bought that I didn't buy, or I didn't buy more of, and I wish that I didn't buy that I had bought at the time. I mean, that's the game. That's how the stock market works. The idea of being, staying with your principles, staying fundamentally disciplined, staying diverse, making sure that you review your portfolio, making sure that you rebalance your portfolio. All of those things apply because in the long run, you may get lucky. You may get lucky in a period of time, but there's also a strong chance that you could get unlucky. And when you're a speculative investor, when you're like, I want to put everything into one position, or I want to put everything in a very small group of concentrated positions or one sector, then
you're swinging big.
Yeah, you're swinging big, and you could miss. And if you miss, and that's okay. And in many cases, as long as you understand,
that's right.
And this is what we say, when a client wants to, because risk is important. Risk is something everybody needs to take. So when we say, look, in our case, a risk, we talk about risk versus gamble. We've talked about it on the show. A risk versus a gamble. In a risk, I can recover from that. It's not going to change my over. Now, I may have to make adjustments.
Well, and there's some calculations that go on in there. You're making an educated guess, right? You're saying, well, here's the risk. The risk is Elon Musk dies, right? Something happens to the company, it goes belly up. The company's fortunes don't change. We find out car batteries cause cancer, and the whole who knows,
Yeah.
right? So yes.
But then there's the gamble, right? So the risk is something that I can recover from. The risk, so meaning that I'll take this risk, but if this all goes to zero, if that particular I lose on that stock, on that investment, it's not going to change my overall plan. It's not going to change my overall glide path. I mean, if I win, that could change, that could help it. But if I lose, it's not going to necessarily. Now a gamble's different. A gamble, it's like you said, if I'm swinging big and I'm gambling and I lose that, then that could like if I put my 401k into one stock, then guess what? I could, a lot of people did that back in the old Enron days. They said put it all in the company stock.
Talk to the Polaroid people.
And there you go. And there goes your retirement, and that changes, and then it changes everything, right? It changes.
Changes your entire trajectory. Right. And
so,
you want to do it, you can do it. There's ways to do it. Talk to your advisor. If you have a Mad Money account, then you know what? That's great. You might have a small IRA. Might have $50,000 in it. You say to yourself, this is where I'm going to make those bets.
Yeah.
I like to dabble. I like to play around. This is where I'm going to swing big because A, there's no taxes. I can make all the changes I want. I don't have to worry about cost base. I have to chase all that. And I'm going to do it there. And then that we would say, we would welcome that. We'd say, let's have at it. Let's have at it.
Because if it goes to zero, if it goes to zero, how does that change your overall retirement plan or your glide path or send your kids to college or anything like that? Nothing. It doesn't change.
No,
it.
not at all.
Does it make me upset? Yeah, it's a bummer because I lost $50,000.
A little egg on your face, but you know what? You're right. It's not going to alter your worldview. It's not going to completely destroy your long-term plans.
Again, it comes back to staying disciplined, staying fundamentally sound, and not being speculative, not gambling. That's
just like us. Just like us.
All right. So I think that's it.
Sound.
So, and talk to somebody talk to your fiduciary advisor.
Talk to somebody.
Talk to somebody who cares.
Call, email the show. Email the show. Let us know. We'll talk you through it.
All right. Well, that's it. We got to wrap it up.
That was quick.
It's game time.
All
right.
Good stuff. Have a great week, everybody. Always moneythelaw.net. Email the show. Let us know what's going on. Let us know if there's any particular things you want us to address or take care of. And John Droham, Manafort Financial, can be found in beautiful downtown Holliston. A couple doors up from me, Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group. So come on down, pay us a visit.
If the dog's barking,
we'll put him in the crate.
We'll put him in the crate. It's a dog-friendly environment. Really,
very good.
Really
It's
dog-friendly.
very dog-friendly.
All right, we'll see everybody next week. Money in the Law. Bye.
Have a great week.